Welcome, Sens fans across the world, but most likely in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, to season 5, episode 13 of the Senstennial Podcast. And this week, we got a bunch of mailbag questions that we're going to get to. But first, off the top of the show, we want to talk about generally how the Sens have been doing over the past week. You know, the good, the bad, what we like, maybe don't like. We'll talk about that. And then talking a little bit about Timmy being on a heater. And yes, for the people who entered our contest on Twitter or X, we'll be drawing the name for the person to win the 2 tickets to the Sens Rangers game on January 27th. And it comes with a parking pass as well to help you not have to pay for, $20. So there you go. We'll get to that. But first, let's kick things off right off the top of the show. Bennett, how have you felt about the Ottawa Senators in the past week?
I've felt pretty good. Oh, are we not doing the swap anymore? Wow.
That was only last week. You don't get the swap names anymore. With the real Bennett, please stand up.
All right, there we go. Yeah, I mean, things have been looking slightly better. I think it's fair to say. The Senators had a nice, tidy win against Montreal. And then there was a close run overtime loss to Winnipeg, who are one of the best teams in the league. And then a comeback win against Philly, who are also one of the best teams in the league right now. So there's been some positives to take away. Korpisalo has put together a couple of, decent goaltending performances with save percentages above 900 in his last 2 outings. He's still letting in, some softies on a game-to-game basis. So eventually, that'll catch up to him if he doesn't cut that out. But, take the wins where you can get them. And, I think overall the team's play is showing signs of life. So this week we have less to complain about than usual.
Yeah, and Matt, how are you feeling after this streak of, I think 3 solid games overall?
Well, I'm gonna go back 5 actually. The Sens have, grabbed 7 out of a possible 10 points. Going back to the Sharks game and then Colorado, they lost, but I think you have to look at that game and sort of chalk it up to some savable goals, and it becomes a more winnable game. Then you beat the Habs pretty handily. Then you take the Jets to overtime. They're considered one of the best teams in hockey right now, and you do it quite well. And then you have a comeback victory against the Flyers. As I said, 7 out of 10, 7 out of possible 10 points is huge at this point in the season. Wow, I haven't said that at all this season. But I would probably say the Habs game was probably a turning point. And over the stretch, the Sens have had a positive Corsi 4 in every single game, including the Winnipeg and Colorado game. And that, their big players were all way above that 50% mark for positive Corsi. And most notably the Brady and Giroux combo with whichever center they're playing with has been widely successful. And I think that has to be, applauded. And these guys have seemingly hit a point where they look like they're playing better hockey, and their system and their defensive philosophy and structure of their entire game has shifted from, I saw somebody mention, they went from playing pickup hockey style to now a strong neutral zone molasses type style where it's very difficult to get through that neutral zone. And once you're in the defensive zone, there's still kinks to work out, but I've liked them significantly more. And with Hamonic out of the lineup, you've had 4 goals allowed over 7 periods. And I'm pretty positive we haven't been able to say that for quite some time. And I know that's kind of a sad stat to look at, but We haven't really had good team save percentage, and I think you have to really attribute it to the entire core shoring things up. And if we get just league average goaltending from here on, and I'm talking like 905, that's just what we need here. Things will look up, but goaltending's kept us in some and has cost us on others. I haven't loved Mad's 2 starts. Korpisalo has played some good games. Obviously, as Bennett said, some soft goals, but I'm pretty happy about how things have gone.
Yeah, and one thing that you didn't mention that I want to bring up, and I'm glad you didn't, is the emergence of Ridley Gregg. I think Ridley Gregg has really come into his own. Last season, he still put up positive results in the limited time he played, but this year he's been even better, and he's been in a lot more tougher roles too. Playing top line minutes, and he's kind of fit in seamlessly. Now, obviously, it will be nice when he cuts down on taking some of those penalties, but overall, it seems like he is exactly what the Ottawa Senators needed to inject in the top 6, a player who can play a 200-foot game. And obviously, Claude Giroux, he's done that. Tim Stutzle, I posted on social media earlier on Twitter that, he had improved his defensive analytics since Jacques Martin had taken over.
Yeah.
Mostly over the course of January is when they've seen bigger improvements. So, now you're starting to see some of that defensive awareness improve in the top 6, and Ridley Gregg really helps with that. And getting Shane Pinto back, finally back from his suspension, that's a big topic that we should touch on. And he gets an assist in his first game back. I don't know if you guys watched the helmet video, but it was really wholesome to see Tarasenko get the helmet and then immediately hand it off to Pinto and, have that little bro hug. And yeah, it was great to see that. The vibes seem much better right now. And I think that will also help the team going forward. But maybe let's touch on that with Shane Pinto coming back in the lineup with, 41 games that he suspended for whatever was related to gambling. He's back, he gets an assist. And Ben, I'll throw it to you. Shane Pinto finally back. What does that do for the Sens lineup going forward?
It certainly makes things easier, adds a little bit more depth. Center depth, we had been hoping and expecting would be an asset to this team this season. And then before things started, we lost one of our centers and then lost Greg to injury. So that for a while there, we thought we'd have, 4 really good centers in the roster. And instead we had, 1.5, because Josh Norris doesn't quite crack that list yet. Yeah, I mean, the team looks better with Pinto in it. I think we all see that. Ridley Gregg able to move on to the wing with Stutzle and Batherson. We continued a strong play. Pinto, Tarasenko, and Joseph making a strong third line. I think there's that's a really good looking top 9 for the most part. And hard to see any negatives to having Pinto back in the team. He signed for low money. I mean, unfortunately, for reasons, that we still don't really fully understand, he had his bargaining position kind of like cut off at the knees. So in the short term, the Senators were able to sign him to like a contract they wouldn't have been able to sign him to 6 months ago. Hopefully we'll see like a proper extension in place and just like get that contract mess behind us. But for now, it's great to have him in the team. He's strong defensively. He kills penalties. He has shown lots of offensive upside in his time in Ottawa, and there's really no downside to having him back.
Cool. Yeah. And Matt, how do you feel about Mr. Pinto being back?
I think it's great to have a player who scored 20 goals last season back in the lineup, a defensively responsible.
Hot take.
Seriously.
Hot take. Goals are good and they help the team.
Yeah. And a defensively responsible center to boot. This is a guy who came in last afternoon and went 90% in the faceoff dot, who got a point, who didn't look like he needed time in the AHL, at least a month. Yeah, that's some subtweet right there. Just putting that out there.
Passive aggressiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a guy who is a professional. He took his suspension, however stupid it is, right on the chin and moved on with his life. There was a un I mean a unreliable rumor that came out on a podcast that it was essentially that Pinto's friend signed into his FanDuel account and set his lineup, and that was it. Listen, I have a big problem with that, especially coming from a league who is jamming FanDuel and Betway and Sport Interactions and BetMGM down our throats. I can name those guys because those are all things I see during a Senators game. And you are punishing a player for doing what you are marketing to fans and the public.
And in this case, not actually doing.
Yeah. So then on top of that, you give him one of the loftiest suspensions in your league's history. Okay. But other things happen on other teams that, it's fine. Shane Pinto is a consummate professional. This guy came in and just worked, and I love it. And I think he's a really good vibes guy. And the Tarasenko thing is a perfect example. Like, I really like Tarasenko and what he's brought to the team, and any of the noise that came in from the summer about how he's bad in the room, like, it just shows that there is video evidence that that is not true. And I'm really happy to hear that. So Shane Pinto can just continue to grow, and now we have all of our centers in the lineup, and let's see where it takes us. Let's see where the magic happens.
And on that note, I think there's been fewer than 30 games where all three of Norris, Stutzle, and Pinto have been in the lineup at the same time.
Yeah.
Past like 2 seasons. That is ridiculous. So having those three guys down the middle and having Ridley Gregg, who can also play center, I think that really helps balance out the lines and give you some flexibility there. Giroux, he's no, what do you call that? No stranger to faceoffs. Well, no stranger to faceoffs. He played center for quite a while before the later years of his career. So anyway, but one of those centers, Tim Stutzle, is on a roll right now. He's got 3 goals and 6 assists in his last 5 games played. He's looking a lot more confident with the puck. Yes, I know one of those goals was an empty netter, but sometimes you just need an easy one to pot every now and then to really get yourself back in the groove. He's looked more confident with his playmaking too. He had a really nice pass to Mathieu Joseph, and after Joseph buried that, he immediately skated over to Timmy and was giving that face like, whoa, like, nice play, nice pass. And you can tell the guys are amped up, and I'm sure that really helps Stutzle with the frustration and some of the confidence issues that I think were brought up about 4 weeks ago. So that'll definitely help for sure. But yeah, Matt, what did you think about Timmy Stu, heating up and how he's looked a lot better recently?
Well, as we've talked about on the podcast for, 2 seasons now, Stutzle is our best player, and he will continuously improve till he's a 120-point player. And I have no doubt of him actually being able to hit that plateau. But as of right now, he's a point per game player, and he is going to continue to heat up. And the important thing out of all of that is he is not sacrificing defensive play to improve his offense. And he's gotten better defensively, and maybe that's just made him more engaged in the entirety of a game. He is doing things on the right side of the puck and without it. So I love seeing that. Stutzle is my favorite Senator, and for good reason. And when he has good games, the Senators win. So if he keeps having good games, we may never lose.
We will never lose again. You heard it here first. Then how have you felt about Timmy Stu?
Yeah, it's great to see him showing flashes of confidence again. It's great to see him among the goals again. He's been contributing assists the whole time, but he hadn't really been having a lot of luck finding the back of the net. And I mean, the development curve of Tim Stutzle, I mean, he just turned 22. He's got 43 points in 42 games. He's coming off a really strong year last year. And I think that, the best players in the league have a way of ending up on the score sheet, even if they're not playing super well. And then when they are playing super well, that's when they really like run the table. And, I think we've seen that with just all season long. Up until this point, he hasn't looked great. He has looked at times like he was indecisive. He was overthinking things, overplaying things, but he would still manage to pick up, an assist or two a game, right? And now that he is starting to show the kind of confidence and decision making that we expect to see from him, I think you're going to see, he doesn't need to catch up or anything. Like he already had a respectable stat line, and now he's just going to keep padding it, which is good. And then another thing is, a lot of like some of the very best players in the league, it's only freaks of nature like Crosby or Connor McDavid who come into the league and run it from like day one. Like even someone like Nathan McKinnon, who most people would agree is one of like the top 5 players in the world right now. His stat line looked very kind of like normal for the first 4 or 5 seasons he was in the league. And then, as he enters his mid-20s and he enters his prime, that's when he started to really take over that team and run the league, if you will. And, Jimmy's still a few seasons out from hitting that point. So we know that, any growing pains that he's seeing right now in his career, those will be a thing of the past in a few years. So we know we've got a hell of a player. And, sooner or later, he's going to start seasons looking like he's going to start seasons in mid-season form, if that makes sense. Because I think the last 2 seasons, he really got a lot stronger in the second half. And I think we're starting to see that happen now. And what we all want to see is him just like hit the ground running right from the go.
Yeah, and I think one thing that people forget is this is a guy who just turned 22 a week ago. So he is still very young, lots of time to develop, especially with a coach like Jacques Martin for the rest of this season. And then whoever the Ottawa Senators decide to bring in for next year, I imagine it'll be a coach. I know there's rumors of a younger coach who's in the running, but I truly believe they're going to go with a veteran coach who has a winning pedigree and a track record of success, because I think that's what this team needs to really get them to take that next step. And, one of the mailbag questions, I think this is a good point to transition, was about this kind of thing. Bennett, you're talking about Tim Stutzle and picking things up in the second half. And we got a question here provided to us by Joe Hockey. So thank you, Joe Hockey, for responding to that tweet. And Joe asks, last year, the team got off to a disastrous start and was out of the playoffs early. Then, with the pressure off, they started playing well and winning games. We're seeing the exact same thing this year. Is history simply repeating itself, or is this really the Jacques effect? And I think that's a good question. And yeah, Bennett, I'll throw it over to you first because you want to go at this one.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, and thanks for sending it in. I do want to quibble a little bit with the premise, though, because I think that to say that the way that last season worked out was that we cratered at the start of the year and then the pressure was off and we started playing well isn't quite true. Because if you remember around the trade deadline, which was like March 3rd, I think we were in the midst of what would be a 5-game win streak. We landed Jacob Chikrin. It was like a time of like a lot of promise. And like at that point, we were only a few points out of a playoff spot. And then the problem is that right at that point, when the pressure was on, right in the spring, and we were, if we had kept winning, we might have been able to sneak into that playoff spot. And then we went on that disastrous West Coast road trip and we lost 5 in a row, which started with a 5-0 loss to like the terrible Chicago Blackhawks. And that's what killed us. Because the team, yes, like the team was terrible at the start of the year, as they always are, but they were still kind of in it up until early March. And so I think it's a slight misrepresentation of how last season went to say that they started playing well when the pressure was on, because when the pressure was off, because the pressure was on there for a minute and they were playing well and then they shot the bed. So I think both were kind of true. I think what we're seeing now this season is not that the pressure is off. I think if anything, there's probably more pressure than there's ever been because of the attitude around the team and the level of expectations that's continued to rise every season. Now exacerbated by the arrival of new ownership, which brings its own, renewed expectations. And you have a coach now who's holding players accountable in a way that DJ didn't necessarily. So I think it's not quite accurate to say that this is a team that plays well when the pressure's off. I think right now I think what the bounce back that we're seeing is like a result of the work that's going on behind the scenes here, with the coaching change, with like getting rid of DJ was a shock to the system and it led to a bit of a regression. But now I think they're starting to see some positive results. They're starting to like connect the dots a little bit. And there's one quote that I wanted to pull up here, is that Tarasenko said in a recent interview at the end of one of the games. He said, "You have to learn to get excited about the little plays." He said, "Learn how to get excited over simple plays." And if that's not like a Jacques Martin kind of like quote, then I don't know what is, because that's the sort of thing that and he's correct that the little plays that you get right, it's not the flashy stuff that wins you games. It's the stuff that doesn't look flashy because it never got to that point that wins you games. It's not flashing the glove hand in a really, like exaggerated way. It's, breaking apart a play and taking over control in your own zone before a shot even gets fired that wins you games. And so anyway, that's that kind of mentality that I think Martin is trying to establish. And I think it'll serve this team well going forward. And that's a very roundabout way of saying I don't think that's quite what's happening here.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. But Matt, feel free to add anything to Bennett's great response there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think when you look at the play of the Sens in the last 5 games, you have to look at the small X's and O's plays that they're making. And, as Bennett mentioned with the Tarasenko quote, you have to get excited about the little plays. And when the Sens are reducing the amount of shots that they're allowing and the less high danger shots, and they are successfully breaking the puck out of the zone and all these little things, to me, I look at last year's run is, they injected the team with a big name defenseman in Jacob Chikrin, who I think was playing some very good hockey before he got hurt and then came back, and then Shabbat went out. And Bennett's absolutely right in the sense that last year there were expectations for a week. When they started chanting, "We want playoffs," that like the Sens have never felt that pressure in the last 6 years. And then they crumbled because they did there was no structure to allow them to continue off the strong play. But now you look at the guys that are succeeding right now and who are leading the team. Those are the guys that should be doing it. And this is way different than last year because there is structure. There is a philosophy of doing the right things the right way, and you will get rewarded for it. It's not a go out, play your game, have fun, results will come. It's go out, do what you believe is correct in the way you've been practicing it, and you will see the results. And that is who Jacques Martin is. He is the guy who, puts in systems and structures and allows players to succeed. And I really think, I really hope they don't make playoffs for Martin's sake, because he's like, I don't want to be back there again. But he will be if they do. Like, you have to. And I would like to see them continue, but yeah, last year's run compared to just playing better overall, this is a little different.
Yeah, now I don't know how likely it is they dig themselves out of the hole they've already dug and get into the playoff conversation. I don't even want to touch that until, they're within a stone's throw of it. But one of the questions that was asked, and we kind of started to touch on this, was about Jacob Chikrin. Now, Seasick on Twitter asked, should we trade Chikrin and how much could we get back? So I think this one, interesting question. Obviously, Chikrin's name has come up in rumors before. Personally, I don't think Ottawa would get as much as what they gave up for him, and I don't think they gave up a ton. But I think it'd be similar to Alex DeBrincat, where Ottawa took the L and just got back what they could. But again, I'll throw this one to Ben and get his thoughts on, maybe not what you think the individual pieces would be, but should the Sens trade Chikrin?
Yeah, I don't want to see the Sens trade Chikrin because that would just be another sort of like dent in, that would be another, losing assets for nothing kind of situation. Like with DeBrincat, we took a swing on DeBrincat. We acquired him for a few draft picks, could have been worse. We didn't have to give up any young prospects or anything. But then when he failed to re-sign here, I mean, those picks are basically gone. We didn't get anything quite equivalent back from Detroit. We did get a first round pick, but it's a low first round pick because it's going to be Boston's or something, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a net loss in terms of assets. I think we'd be looking at the same situation for Chikrin. It'd be likely to be a net loss. I think right now, doesn't he have another year after this as well in his contract? I wouldn't want to talk about moving that contract and that player until like next year's deadline, let's say. Like if he hasn't re-signed by then absolutely, like you trade that player and you get what you can for him. But right now, I don't think that's the move I would want to make. Just like give the team a little bit more time to cook. If next season starts well and the vibes are good and the team's winning under a new coach, then then Chikrin would be an asset to this team and it'd be foolish to get rid of him. But I'm not dead set against trading him, but it's like I think that any expectations of the Hall should be muted because it cost us like 3 draft picks to acquire him, and one of them was a first. And wait, was one of them a first?
Yeah.
I don't even. Okay, yeah. And it's like I think that the best we could hope to get back for him would be another first, and that doesn't really help the team right now.
Yeah, I look at the Chikrin trade rumors and I have a lot of feelings about them, obviously. I don't think we should necessarily trade Jacob Chikrin because I believe he can be a valuable part of a winning team here. Obviously, him playing the left side and having a plethora of left-handed defensemen can be a real headache when you're trying to build a very balanced team. I would like to see one of our lefties go to the right side and see how successful they are. I don't think the Shabbat Chikrin thing is working, but I think the Sanderson Chikrin thing could work. With that said, I think right now might be the lowest value Chikrin has. I still absolutely think he would net a first round pick, like without a doubt. But look how many ludicrous deals you have seen at the deadline for people. Like Tanner Jeannot got 5 picks one year. And if it's next year and the Sens are still are contending, but they get a ludicrous offer for him and he hasn't signed, like you should trade him because you might be able to entice him back in free agency. But if you're able to solve a couple holes or improve organizational depth, when the time comes, sure, like if it makes sense. But to talk about a Chikrin trade right now and then to see what you get for him at this moment, I would hope his assets bring back a right-hand defenseman. But I don't know what the market is for a guy who's a good defenseman, but has had some play issues.
Now, the one thing that's on his side is he's been healthy for the entire season. Knock on wood. That's something that's plagued him for most of his career, but this year hasn't, which is really nice to see. Now we're going to get to one more question that's, a little bit wading into the problems with the team. And then we'll talk about a couple of, questions that bring out maybe a little bit more positivity. So we're going to get to the next question, which was posed by Dana White Burner on Twitter. And it was, what is the main problem you guys think with the team right now? The coaching, the players, chemistry. What is your opinion on that? So I'll throw this over to Matt first, then go over to Bennett.
That's a hard question because right now, they're on an upwards trajectory. I would probably say in the last 5 games, I would probably say goaltending. The Senators need better, more consistent, even average goaltending. You're not going to win games with an .880 save percentage from your goalie and not making the clutch save, or hell, just like make saves on routine shots. I would really like to not have to talk about goaltending every podcast, but it's a consistent issue with this team. And we got out with a win against Philly, but there were some questionable goals on Sogard. And as I said, I haven't loved his starts. Korpisalo has given us some quality starts recently, and you hope that he continues that, knock on wood. So I would say goaltending and the philosophy of having some structure and giving your goalie and the goalie the chance to make saves.
Bennett, how are you feeling on the team? What's your opinion? Is it coaching, players, something else that you think is the biggest problem that you'd like to see fixed?
Yeah, it's a tough question because, I mean, like in the immediate sense, you want to say goaltending, which I guess, comes down to like players, if you want to categorize it that way. I think coaching was the main problem until very recently. And I think now, like, we're starting to see that hopefully turn around. Although, again, like, we're probably not going to see that truly change until a new head coach is brought in, because as long as Jacques Martin is the age that he is and has the interim tag in front of his name, no one's under the assumption that he's going to be the team's coach next year. So I think like he's having a positive influence. I think at this stage we can start to say that, perhaps not in terms of results, but at least in terms of like the mentality of the players. But ultimately, they know that he's not going to be the one that's going to be leading the team next year. So like they probably don't have 100% buy-in into what he's telling them at this stage. Anyway, so it's like coaching is probably the most immediate thing that can make a difference. I think if you want to get really existential, you could say kind of like years of missed opportunities under previous ownership and previous GM that led us into this situation where we don't have a reliable goaltender and where we've burned a lot of picks on players that don't play here anymore or never only played here for like a season. Kind of like short-sighted moves like that have had long-term impacts on the team. Hopefully those kind of mistakes will be done with now that we've got new ownership group coming in and a lot of smart people in the head office. But I mean, a little bit of players, a little bit of coaching, I'd say. But I think the cavalry is going to start coming once we stop, whiffing on the draft and whiffing on players who don't want to play here so much. And new coaching next season can help with that too.
I would say for me, the biggest thing is having the forwards commit to playing defense. And I think, like we kind of talked about earlier in the show, having Ridley Gregg now being able to play, 200-foot game and actually getting a chance in the NHL, because let's remember he didn't start the beginning of the season up with Ottawa. And then having Pinto come in the lineup, another guy who's known for having a good 200-foot game, I think that definitely helps. And I think the other forwards, like we also mentioned with Tim Stutzle getting better defensively and Claude Giroux being, analytically a good defensive presence, that top six is going to get better. I'd like to see guys like Brady Tkachuk, get better at his two-way game, and I'd like to see Josh Norris kind of return to his defensive form that he used to have. It'd be nice to see, but I also kind of know that my expectation should be tampered. Norris had a pretty massive injury and I think he only played like maybe 8 games last season. So having him come in and be able to play a full season of games will help. Brady Tkachuk doesn't have the foot speed to be in an overly effective back checker, I think. However, guys like Mark Stone have made it work. So maybe in the offseason, Brady Tkachuk needs to hit up his old line mate Mark Stone and get some pointers on how he does things. But aside from that, I think playing as a 5-man unit, good old Guy Boucher style defensive hockey. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but once the players play a good defensive style hockey, and we've talked about them being better in the neutral zone, I think they'll have more of that offense just come naturally because they'll be more confident in their play overall. So now let's turn to a couple of, more fun, optimistic, or walks down memory lane, something like that. What is your favorite memory of being an Ottawa Senators fan? Now, is that one too much to throw at you guys? You need a minute? Or
I'm good to go.
All right. Okay, then I'll toss it over to Bennett and give me your favorite Sens memory.
Yeah, I can pinpoint it exactly. It was game 3, May 17th of 2017, in the conference finals against Pittsburgh. They were in town visiting your Ottawa Senators. It was the game that the Sens won 5-1, and just like they couldn't even finish announcing the goals because the Sens had scored again. And the vibes in the CTC were just like fans were just tearing the roof off of that place. We got the Penguins didn't show up to that game. Obviously, the Senators just completely ran the thing. The guy behind me the whole game kept shouting out, "Where's Crosby? Is he even here? Where's Crosby?" It was hilarious. Yeah, that's easily my favorite Senators memory. I mean, I was a little bit too young to catch the 2007 run to the final. I mean, I remember absorbing bits and pieces of what was going on, but in terms of stuff I was really the boots on the ground for, that's got to take the cake.
Yeah, I'll go with a boots on the ground memory as well. Now, sadly, the only Sens playoff game I've been to, because I was broke university student at the time, but it was game 1 of the 2017 playoffs where sadly the Sens lost, but they ended up beating Boston, so it's fine. But I would say favorite boots on the ground memory that I can remember is when Ottawa was actually playing Pittsburgh. And it was the game where I believe it was Erik Karlsson had a nice little toe drag and shot it upstairs I believe it was Marc-Andre Fleury at the time. And it was a nice goal. The Sens ended up winning that game 5-0. I was actually there volunteering, doing 50-50 tickets.
Nice.
But because they had too many volunteers, I was able to walk around the upper bowl of the 300s with my buddy. So for most of the game, we were able to just, watch the game and got free pizza in the second intermission. Gotta love that about being a 50-50 volunteer. And taking in a good old Sens whopping of the Penguins. And I got to see a guy take his Crosby jersey off and he threw it on the ground because he was so upset after the Sens scored their 5th goal. So that was a delight. So that's, I would say, off the top of my head, I got to put that up there. But Matt, I'll throw it over to you to give yours.
I definitely,
and it doesn't have to be a game against the Penguins. It can be against anyone.
Yeah, apparently. It's also again, no, I'm kidding. It's not against the Penguins. It is the Ottawa Senators versus the Habs in game 3 on May 5th, 2013. The Sens put up a 5 spot against the Habs while also simultaneously having a line brawl. And that was the Pajot game where he put up a hat trick, and they absolutely dismantled that team in that series. And I remember we were sitting beside some Habs fans, and I was just fresh out of high school, and I was just trying to be as positive for them as possible, but people around them were giving it to them. And it was hilarious. And but nobody was rude or anything like that. Just good fashion ribbing and yeah, I still look back at those memories fondly because my aunt Carol took me to that game as a birthday gift, and that hell of a birthday gift, I'll say that.
I still go
Yeah.
back and watch highlights of that game sometimes, like with the
Yeah.
line brawl and then like the empty benches, and then they drop the puck and Kyle Turris immediately goes. I think it was Turris immediately went and scored right after. Like, and so it's like the goals were separated by like 5 seconds of game time,
Yes,
but in
yeah.
between, the Senators just dropped every single member of the Canadiens roster. It was truly incredible.
Okay, so final question here today that I want to go with. If and this one was sent to us by Noah on Twitter. If the Sens were to get an alternate jersey, what would you want it to be? I'll pass this one over to Bennett first.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might be stealing your thunder here, Nate, but it's hard to look past those white Heritage Classic jerseys that the Sens had a few years ago. I mean, I think when those came out, I'd never had so many requests of people to like get to like buy like a Sens jersey like for Christmas or a birthday or like something, you know. I mean, those O jerseys were nice, but the white O jerseys were just like chef's kiss. So I like our current jerseys a lot better. I'm a big 2D logo guy. The O is fine, but 2D is still superior. But if we could get like that O back as like a third jersey or something, that'd be really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I put it in chat and I knew it was going to get stolen because it is the
It's
best
just
jersey
it's
we've
just
had in a
the
long
right
time.
answer.
Yeah,
Like,
it is the right answer, and I'm pissed I didn't buy one at the time because I
Ooh.
was a broke high school student. But I look back and just like the look of that jersey on the ice was exceptional, and I don't quite think Adidas could replicate how the jersey looked. Like it almost looked like a felt type jersey, and it was perfect. And I would love to see something like that come back. I loved the O jerseys, obviously not as much as the 2D logo. But there's something special in it. I would love to have our third or alternate jersey be at the very least the O, and best possible scenario a that cream colored O jersey.
I would have to say I love the O jersey as well. My mom got me a Bobby Ryan cream white O jersey when it just came out, and I think I still have. It came with like a photo of some of the most prominent Sens players at the time wearing it, you know, looking all cool with the hockey sticks pointed and stuff. So I have that one in my closet just here. But I have to say, and you know, I think it looks better on the players than it does when someone's like just wearing it, and it has to be the Senegoth jersey. I don't know what it is, but you look at pictures, and you know what? I got a picture of Alfie right here. One sec.
the Senegoth jersey.
You'll know what it is. Like
This, here we go. Got a picture of
Oh,
Daniel Alfred. Oh, there we go.
yeah,
I don't want the glare to hit it. That looks so beautiful.
those were pretty cool.
I would love to see those make a comeback as a third jersey, maybe with a bit of touching up here and there. But man, like, see, Daniel Alfredson needs to come out and warm up with one of those bad boys. You know, reveal it and then have him do a lap. I don't care. Want to see it. Or just standing behind the bench in one. But yeah, so I gotta say, I'd love to see a return of that one. But on that note, I do want to do the draw for the contest winner for the 2 tickets to the Rangers Sens game taking place on January 27th. So I have the Excel sheet with all the people who entered, and I have a random number generator. I have given you all a number from 1 to 62 based on where you showed up in my Twitter responses. So here we are, generating number. And I got number 6. Number 6 goes to Devin at Devin6561. So Devin, if you're watching or listening to this, please shoot us a DM at Senstennial. Give us your email address so that I can send those tickets over to you. Comes with 2 tickets and a parking pass for lot 6. So congratulations. Thank you to everyone who entered. Really appreciate it. We're going to probably do another one of these in the next couple months. I have other tickets to give away, or maybe a hockey card draw. We'll figure it out. We'll see. And also, this coming Saturday, it is the Brady Tkachuk bobblehead night. So enjoy your bobbleheads. Little sad that gave away my tickets to the game where the bobbleheads are being handed out. Short-sighted on my part, but you get the dub there. So congrats. But yeah, to anyone else watching or listening, thanks for tuning in to another show. Really appreciate all the support you've given us. And I don't think I can say anything other than that. Go Sens go. Hopefully we see some more wins. And time to sign off.
Where can people find our content if they want to go looking for that?
Bennett, that is a great question. For everybody who's watching, you can see them on the overlay here. You can see all our ats and all that. For those listening, we're most active on Twitter, or as we like to now refer to it, X.
We do not like to refer to it as such.
I was trying to like toss a bone, but yeah, you're right. So on X at Senstennial, on Instagram at the Senstennial, and yeah, those are our main 2 platforms. You can find us though on like Facebook and Reddit, and all 3 of us are in the Ottawa Senators Discord server. So feel free to reach out to us on any platform, and we'll see you around. Go Sens go.
Yeah.
Go Sens go, everybody.